Welcome to Spectrum Perspectives, real talk with parents, professionals, and autism advocates, with your host, Cindy Gellermini.
Hi, everybody. This is Cindy with another episode of Spectrum Perspectives. And today I have my friend James Scott with us, and he's coming all the way from across the pond in Scotland. Hi, James. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be here. Thank you for having me.
So James and I met on Clubhouse, and if you don't know what that is, it's an app where you can basically talk to people all over the world. And I pop into some podcaster rooms once in a while. And a couple of months ago, when I was starting the podcast, I had mentioned that it was about autism. And James does a podcast about sports, right? About American sports, but you talk about them in Scotland, right? And so I had no idea, and I just said, well, mine is going to be where I talk to parents of autism. And you popped in, and you're like, oh, I'm going to be on your podcast because I have kids with autism. And I never would have known if I didn't say that, right? If I didn't bring it up. So I'm happy to have you here because as I interview other parents, I like to hear what's going on in their neck of the woods in this, whatever state they live in. And you're my first international interview. So I'd like to hear what's going on over there in Scotland and what it's like raising. And you have two boys with autism, correct?
Yeah, that's right. We've got the two. We've got three kids until three boys. But the oldest two both are on the spectrum.
Right. And how old are they?
So they both just had birthdays. So Logan has just turned 12. Carter's just turned 6.
Logan is the first one, right? Logan is 12?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
Carter's
Logan's
6.
12.
Yeah. Okay, so they're 6 years apart. All right. So, and Logan is your oldest.
Logan's the oldest, yeah.
Okay. So you did not have other kids to compare him to when you had him, right? It's not like you had another one before him.
No, and I think for me, my exposure to autism was pretty much zero up until that point. I have like an extended family in America, and like a cousin has autism. I didn't really know that that's what he had though. Like it was, for me, when I was a kid, he was just different. Like he did things in a different way, very high functioning. And me and him used to play. He's like 4 years older than I am. So me and him used to just play. We kind of grew up together when I was a kid in Utah. And then when I seen him when I was older, I then began to understand that he was autistic when I was a teenager. But again, like for me, he was just him. So it never really registered until we had Logan, and that was that's when it really started to kind of register that, you know, autism's a thing, and, you know, it is such a wide spectrum. It's unbelievable.
Right. And so how old would he be, your cousin, now? If he's 4 years older than you?
He's like 44.
Yeah. Because, and back then when you were a kid, you never heard that word autism anyway, you know, like.
Definitely not.
No, nobody knew what it was back then, not like it is now. So let's, I'm going to ask you same questions I ask everybody. So during the pregnancy, when your wife was pregnant with Logan and with your other son too, were there any kind of red flags? Like, did the doctor pick up on anything and say, hey, there might be something wrong with this baby, and how was the labor and delivery?
So everything was planned. And the reason everything was planned, and I mean from conception to delivery, because my wife had her large intestine taken out when she was 19, and they created inside her a pouch, and that meant that giving birth was going to be difficult. I think the word that they used was catastrophic.
Catastrophic.
Catastrophic. That was it.
Yeah.
Catastrophic if she was to give a natural birth.
Wow,
so,
that's a scary word.
Yeah, especially when you're right at the beginning of a pregnancy.
Yeah.
So with Logan, we had that, and they said, look, what we'll do, the due date is this date. I think it was Christmas Day was his due date. So what we'll do is we'll just do a C-section the week before, bang, bang, bosh, and that'll be fine. With Logan's pregnancy, there wasn't any kind of red flags. There was nothing at all. My wife went through some exceptionally crazy cravings. craving stuff that she actually hated, but
Oh,
she
that's good.
somehow enjoyed for some reason, which was quite fun. Actually, it was a good pregnancy. It was kind of, you know, it was stressful obviously towards the end, because, you know, she's getting as big as a house as you do, and her ankles are all swollen up and all the usual stuff, but just the kind of stuff you expect. With the delivery, it was a C-section, and the first thing that happened was he swallowed the basically the poo that was in the sac.
Yeah.
And so that he inhaled some of that. So the doctors had to take him away, get him all cleared out, check his breathing, making sure everything was okay that regard, and that was all fine. We went back up to the room, and my wife was like, "Well, where's Logan? Why have we not got Logan yet?" And I was like, they're just checking him over. There's nothing to worry about. I'd went away with him for a couple of minutes while the doctors were checking him out, and they did not seem concerned whatsoever. So we were kind of like, well, yeah, fine, no problem. And they wheeled him into the room eventually, and yeah, there was nothing untoward whatsoever. And then, I mean, fast forward three years, and you can start to tell that he is not developing quite like we would expect. Like, he wasn't talking, he wasn't like potty training at all. He was very kind of closed off. He would have massive temper tantrums, what we thought were temper tantrums at the time. He would have full-on meltdowns, banging his head off walls. And a lot of it was just frustration, because he wanted to communicate what he wanted or what he wanted to do or whatever, but he just couldn't. And as parents, that was quite frustrating, because we could tell there was something in there that he wanted to say. We just didn't know what he wanted to say. So it's frustration on both sides. His behavior was erratic, in terms of, like, one minute he'd be kind of happy playing with toys, the next minute they were getting thrown across the room, and that kind of stuff. And we went through a kind of different kind of scenarios, and with some doctors and stuff, and my wife seen a doctor with Logan, a pediatrician, and the pediatrician said, okay, you know, there can be a couple of factors, there can be a couple of things that this could be. I'm not going to nail anything down right now, but obviously he's at nursery or kindergarten, for you guys in the States, just about to go into school. So, you know, we'll start observing him, and we'll start kind of seeing what's kind of setting him off, and all this kind of stuff. So we're like, yeah, that absolutely sounds fine. We thought, you know, we'll get to the root cause of what's causing the flare-ups of this temper, and, you know, the not talking and all the rest of it. So we were quite happy with that. And my wife went to a meeting at school, to discuss his development and what they can do to support, which is really good. And like, it's a really good step. And, you know, you're quite happy with that, you know, people are caring and taking an interest. And then my wife was in the meeting, and all the teachers talked, and, you know, oh, Logan does this well, he doesn't do this so well. And they kind of went round, and it was, my wife said it was actually really good. It was kind of, they were kind of hitting the same points we were seeing at home, which was really good, because then at least we're not just imagining it, if that makes sense. And it got to this one health professional. However, I'd leave out the professional word for this one. She turned around to my wife and goes, well, you know, with the autism, I mean, we should really start to look at other things. And my wife goes, what, autism? And the health professional was like, yeah, got here listed from the pediatrician that he's autistic. And my wife's like, she burst into tears, obviously. She was like, the teachers went mental. Like, the teachers were not amused that this health professional just kind of blurted this out. Effectively, what had happened was the doctor, the pediatrician, had sent an email round to everyone that was going to be at this meeting, because she couldn't be there, and said, look, there's a whole list of things that could be causing this. it could be autism, it could be blah, 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 blah. And she listed about 5 or 6 things on this email. And basically this health professional just read the first one at the top of the list, just said it was that. And that's how we found out
Wow.
that he was autistic.
So the pediatrician never said anything to you. I guess
No.
this team was supposed to be part of figuring out what the diagnosis was, I'm guessing.
No, so this team, basically, because it was teachers and stuff,
Yeah.
this was just really about how they could best help Logan transition from kindergarten to school, and like what works well for him, what doesn't work well for him, what kind of sets him off. And it just so happened that the doctor couldn't be at that meeting, and she'd sent an email around with loads of information on it, and she just put on this list of different things that it could be. Autism happened to be at the top, and yeah, she just kind of spewed forth.
Yeah, but I think the pediatrician should have called you first, before putting it on an email.
Yeah, so it was supposed to be a confidential email between health professionals and teachers and stuff, and it was very much we don't know if it's any of these things, but we need to do tests and stuff, and we're going to need your support to do these tests. Because there's a school part, there's a home part, and there's a doctor part. And so no, I mean, it was quite normal for doctors to talk to like the teachers and say, well, we've got this kind of list of things. So it was more the health professional that went to the meeting that kind of screwed up, because she just kind of
got it,
blotted out the first one at the list.
Right. Great. Okay, so now your wife burst into tears. So then what? So then what happened after that?
So the pediatrician called my wife, like almost straight away, like within the hour. She'd found out what had happened, and she couldn't have been more sorry. And she explained about the email and stuff, and how it should only have been for their eyes only, because there was nothing definitive in that email that said this is what it is. So she decided that at that point that, they'll basically speed up the testing, and do that kind of straight away rather than wait. Because I think originally her plan was let him just see how he develops naturally over the next kind of 6 months to a year, and then take it from there. But with the upset that it caused at that meeting, she was like, no, let's not mess around. Let's just kind of put your mind at ease, and let's just find out what it is now.
And how old was he at this time? He's 3, 4, 5?
So by this point, he's 6.
6. And she's still taking the wait and see approach at 6 years old? Was he
I think
speaking?
she wanted to. No,
Could he speak?
No.
He's not speaking at all at 6 years old, and she's saying, let's wait.
He had like one word kind of answers, like, so if he wanted something, if he wanted a drink, he'd say juice, and all this kind of stuff. And this is where the school actually were quite helpful, because they brought in some support into the school to help him with his language. And to be perfectly honest, by the end of that first year, Logan went from one word to having a full conversation with you.
Oh, wow.
And I think what he needed was just that level of support.
Yeah.
That would help him get his emotions out, and be able to explain what he wants and stuff.
Right. Yeah, but usually you start at around 3 years old. And now, as I'm interviewing parents, they're catching it at 16 months, 18 months, and they're starting therapies at that young. So 6 is late for me, but thank God he started to speak. That's great.
Yeah, and like you say, I mean, we've seen that with our second son, because obviously with Carter, we could tell quite early on ourselves, because we were seeing the same kind of signs and stuff. So, and to be fair, his testing started at 18 months, because we kind of said, look, this is what we think. And the doctors kind of, I think they understand that you already have a kid with autism. So if anyone's going to know, it's going to be you.
Right. And so did you get him into any kind of therapies or anything at a young age?
So no, over here, things are a little bit different. There's no, they used to have this thing called speech and language, and they would have people come out and observe him and, you know, try and help him with his language, put things in place. But for Carter, I mean, Carter has a vocabulary of 5 words, and he's 6, and he has never shown an interest in talking. He's in his own bubble. He very rarely comes out of that bubble unless it's to get something, or if he wants one of his brothers to play with him, which is something that's new that's happened recently, is he does kind of reach out to his older and younger brother, which has been nice actually, but it's something that he just never, talking's never been a thing for him. He's just never been vocal whatsoever. Animal noises have always been have always been his thing.
Mhm. What does he like to do that when he's in his own bubble? Like, what is he doing? Is he like a kid that will play with Legos, or he's not interested? Like, my son never played with any toys. He just wanted to watch Disney movies over and over again. It's like, that's all he did.
So Carter's a bit like that as well. With Disney film, we got Disney Plus on the iPad, so like that is one of the things. But he will sit, and like today, me and him just had a day ourselves, and so today he sat on the couch, and he had a bunch of animals with him, and he's just kind of lining them up, and he's just piling them up, and then he had a couple of books that we'd bought for him today. And they're these like texture books, and he's just opening through them and feeling the textures and stuff, and he'll sometimes sit there for hours. It's quite good, like, it's because we worry sometimes that he's on the iPad too much, like watching stuff, so we quite like it when he does take that time away from the iPad, and he'll sit and play. We try and encourage it as much as possible, but sometimes he's just not interested at all, and he just wants nothing but the iPad.
Yeah. When he wants to play with his brothers, what does he want to do with them?
So usually he wants to cuddle. So what, like the other day, he grabbed me by the hand, pulled me to the couch. I was to sit down. He did the same with my wife, and he did the same with his 2 brothers, and we were all to sit on the couch. And we've got like one of these big covers that we can kind of put over all of us. He wanted to cover, and he just wanted his iPad, and he just wanted to sit there in between us all, and just kind of just be there, which is, like I say, it's something that's new for him. Usually he would do it with me and my wife, but it's new for him to start to include his brothers as well. He tried to include his granddad, but unfortunately he doesn't get up and down so well, so it's a bit difficult for him, but he got a little bit frustrated with that. But it is something that's new, and we are seeing some development in him over the last year as well, which has been positive. So he's doing better.
That's cute, because you know, when Robbie was diagnosed, they would say that they don't like affection, you know, they don't like to be hugged, and they don't, you know, they're never going to love you. They don't want you around. Trying to remember the story that somebody told me, but somebody said one of the interviews, the doctor said, don't ever try to hug him or kiss him, because he's not going to want you to ever touch him or something. And she's like, no, I'm doing it. But, you know, so it's just sweet that he wants his family around.
Logan and Carter are both very affectionate. Like, I'll come home from work, and Logan, the first thing Logan will say is, Dad, how was your day? And then he'll give me a hug. And then at night before he goes to bed, I tuck him in and he wants a hug. And Carter, although he won't tell you he wants a hug, he'll kind of signal that he wants up. So you lift him up and he'll give you a big hug. So I don't agree with that kind of scenario.
Well,
I've never seen it. So
well, they're all so different anyway, though. I guess maybe if they have some kind of sensory issues or whatever, you know, that could possibly be it. But I know Robbie liked to wrestle. Like, he would look for his little brother to come wrestle him, because he liked the pressure, and he wanted him to like jump on his back and, like, you know, and squeeze him.
Yeah, Carter does that with his younger brother, because there's only like 18 months between them. So they're like the same height and everything. So he does wrestle a bit with his younger brother. But the thing about Carter is he just doesn't know when to, like, how much pressure is too much pressure. So sometimes Cooper comes off, the youngest comes off a little bit worse for wear. So we usually have to watch, but generally they kind of both enjoy it, and they're laughing and giggling together and stuff, and they'll just literally be rolling around the floor with each other.
Mhm. That's funny. So, so now Logan, let's go back to him, because the first year he was in school, you said he started to speak and having like full conversations and stuff. So he's in a regular public school with other kids?
So the way that works in Scotland is, at the moment anyway, he is in a mainstream school setting. However, the classroom that he is in is basically only got 6 children in it. Like the other classes, the normal standard classes have got about 25 to 30 kids, but his only has 6, and they have like 5 teachers. Well, 1 teacher and like 4 support staff in there.
Right. And are all the kids in his class autistic, or?
So I think most are autistic, but there's a couple of kids in there with other
Right.
learning difficulties as well. So
Mm.
they call them language units. I don't know quite why, but it seems to work quite well. And what we did see is, one of the arguments I had for years, and continue to have, is with Edinburgh City Council. They are the authority that kind of look over schools and stuff in Edinburgh, and their belief is that primary 1, which is your first year of school, is for all, regardless of ability. You should be going into a mainstream setting, regardless of whether you're in a wheelchair, whether you've got learning difficulties. They don't care. You're going into mainstream. We fought and we fought and we fought to get him into a language unit sooner, but we just ignored. And when it came to the school were screaming out to the council, like, we need him to be in a more calm setting, because when he was in that setting, he would only last half a day. So he was only actually having half a day at school for a whole year.
Mhm.
When he moved to the language unit, wow, what a difference.
So that was
He
second
went,
grade?
yeah, so yeah,
Okay.
effectively second grade. He would be, he suddenly went from I hate school to I want to go to school, because it was a lot calmer. There's obviously a lot less people there, and he could kind of collect his own thoughts.
Mhm.
One thing that does affect Logan is noise. He is very sensitive to noise. So when you've got a class of 25 screaming kids, it doesn't work so well for him. But when it was in a nice small setting of 6,
Right.
it was a lot more relaxed for him. He wasn't always as anxious or on an edge.
Did he have anybody with him, an aide or anything to help him when he was in the first grade with all the
No.
other kids, or no? So he was
Yeah,
expected to just go
yeah,
into a regular classroom with all the other kids and just function
yeah.
like everybody else.
The, after a month or so, the school, like, they applied for funding to have some support come in, but initially he was, yeah, pretty much on his own.
That
And when
just
the school did get someone, that the person they got was amazing,
Right.
and was really good, but it's just a shame that the council in Edinburgh just see it that that's the way it has to be.
Yeah, I guess they want them to at least try and then see how bad it is before they have to put them in. Is it money? Is it funding? Because it costs more money to put them in the other class? Is that what it is, you think?
Yeah, it probably does. But I think as well it's very arrogant. I mean, the council in Edinburgh are famous for being arrogant, for some of the decisions that they make. They put tourism above everything else, at Edinburgh,
Yeah.
because it's supposed to be a tourist city, and basically that's where the money goes.
Mhm.
So they could quite easily afford all of these classes and resources. There's enough money in Edinburgh to go around, but they decide to spend it on building trams that nobody wants. But it looks nice for tourists, so we'll build trams, and all these kind of things. So I think it's short-sightedness, because we have actually recently moved house, and we moved into a new council area which is actually only about 5 miles away from Edinburgh. And we've moved to a new area, and they have a completely different view on kids with autism and with special needs. Their view is that they should not be sent into a mainstream setting. They should be sent into a setting that is going to suit their needs best. And so they go in straight away from day one. What does your child need? What works for your child? What doesn't work for your child? And Carter has benefited from this because he has just started school. And so he is straight away not went into a mainstream setting. He's went into a provision that is suitable for him. So there's 4 kids in his class. And because he would never cope in a setting with like 25 to 30 kids. That would put so much stress on him.
Yeah, I know for me, for my son, if he was 5, 6 years old and you just sent him to school, he wouldn't even know what classroom to go to. Like it's like sending a toddler basically and saying, here you go off to school. Like they're just going to wander off somewhere, go back out the door and wander down the street. Like you there's no way that would have worked for my son. No way.
No. And that's where I think Edinburgh City Council, they are seriously letting parents and children down by having this approach to, mainstreams for everyone for the first year. And then, then we'll look at it. Then we'll get round to looking at it. So
and they're wasting too much time doing that too. Wasting a whole year. A whole year where they could be, especially if they're speech delayed, they could be getting speech, they could be right.
Yeah.
Is that why you moved?
No, we moved because we needed a bigger place.
Okay.
But it wasn't until we started the move that I'd phoned up the new local authority that we would be in and said to them about Carter, and they said, "Oh, no problem. When are you moving?" And I was like, 4 weeks. All right, bit short notice, but we'll see what we can get sorted. And they had it, like in 3 weeks, they had it all finished. And This is where he's going. We'll arrange transportation to pick him up from home and take him to school and back again. And like everything was done. If you tried to do that in Edinburgh, now Edinburgh is a much more dense populated city, I will give them that, but still it'd take months. Like you're looking at 6 months to arrange anything like that. So this has been a happy coincidence that moving to where we've moved to seemed to deal with things a lot more sensibly.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like it was a good move overall. My daughter, she teaches special ed, and here in New Jersey, where my son went, it's a great school. It's only for autistic kids. You have 1 teacher and, like you said, like 4 aides. It's basically 2 to 1 ratio, right? And they know how to handle their behaviors and everything else. She moves down to North Carolina. They didn't know what they were doing. And like the teacher would, if the kid had a behavior, the teacher would call the mom to come pick them up and take them home. And I said, so they're not going to catch on to that right away. All I have to do is have a meltdown every day, and I get to go home and watch videos on my iPad, right?
Exactly.
So when they saw how capable she was, they gave her like 10 kids and only like 1 aide or something like that. And she's used to the 2 to 1, and she was complaining to me one day, that she's asked for an aide and they won't give her one. And I said, well, I'll tell you what you do. Take all your kids down to the principal's office, bring them into his office and say, gotta go, see you later, and leave. Leave him alone with your 10 kids in his room, and then let's see how fast you get an aide. She's like, oh, Mom, I can't do that. I said, yeah, but it would work. So that's what I'm wondering with your council up there in Edinburgh. That's what I would do as the parents. I'd find out when they're having a meeting, and all of you just bring your kids and say, here, handle this, fix it. You think these guys all belong in regular classroom for a whole year? Okay, let's see what you think. Anyway.
I'd love to see that. I'd pay to see that.
That would be funny. Okay, so do your kids go to school until they're 21? Because here, if you're in special ed, you go to 21.
Yeah, so I remember my cousin in the States, he went till he was 21, because he finished like the year before me, and I was like, that's weird. I finished at 18. So it's 18 for both special ed and in the UK. So so yeah, they would finish when they're 18.
So, and then what? What do you see for your kid's future?
For Logan, Logan has some very vivid kind of dreams for himself as to what he wants to do. I think the other day he wanted to be a doctor, then he wanted to be a train driver. For him, he loves dinosaurs, and I think if we could find him something to do, further education, so whether it be college or something along those lines, where he could kind of, because that's what he's passionate about. He's passionate about dinosaurs and finding out about them and fossils and all this kind of stuff. So something along those lines. For Carter, to be honest, he's too young to kind of to know.
Too young to know.
But I think for us, I think we just want to see him happy and, you know, doing whatever he kind of falls into. At the moment, he's big into animals. That's kind of his thing. And so, you know, maybe working on a farm or something would be something that would suit him, because it's sheep, it's cows, and those are the things that he's interested in just now. So and we do try and do things with the boys as well to kind of pique those interests. Like the museum in Edinburgh had like a big dinosaur exhibition thing going on. So yeah, we took Logan down. He got into closed caption film for a while, and they had like an exhibition on for that. So we took him down to that, and it was all about how they made Kong back in like the 60s and stuff, and how they filmed it. And he loved it. He thought it was brilliant. So so yeah, we just try and find things to do that they're interested in. Not always easy, but if we think if we do that, then they'll find something that they're kind of passionate. It's kind of like what you would do with any normal kid. Like, find what they're passionate about and then try and encourage it as much as you can.
Yeah, well, it depends on what their ability level is too, you know, what they can do or not. So how, so Logan, does he have friends in school?
Yeah, he does. Unfortunately, one of his friends moved away last year. They basically started at the same time in this unit. So, but he moved away. So he kind of was a little bit lost for a little while at school, because he did have other friends there, but those two were like thick as thieves. So, but yeah, he's kind of resettled back in. He's still got his small group of friends. So he comes in, and sometimes, you know, they've maybe not had a good day together, and you'll hear about it. And if they've had a good day together, you'll hear about it. So again, I mean, you look at any classroom and you're going to have that same thing. So,
but you moved. So is he still in the same school, Logan?
Yes. What we did was, because we didn't move that far away, Logan continues, because it's his last year before he goes to high school. We decided that, and we were already started the year at school, we decided that we would keep him settled in school where he's at just now, instead of moving him and then I'm having to move to high school thereafter. So, and again, where we've moved to have already set it up so that when he does move to high school, they've got him into a provision that will give him support as well. So that's already been set up, and it's not even August yet.
They have a program for him in the high school?
Yeah.
How is he academically? Does he do, like, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic, all that's, you know, like everybody else? Or it's like, because typically with autistic kids, their skill levels are a little off. They'll be really good at some things and not so good at others, and it's usually they're good at what they really like dinosaurs.
Like dinosaurs, yeah. So academically, Logan is, I think he is trending at a 6-year-old level, with right across the board when it comes to academics, whether it be math, reading, writing. His writing has got slightly better. His reading, I think he tries to be a bit sly with. I don't know if he's maybe been a bit like, because sometimes he'll be like, "Oh, Dad, can you read that for me? Because I don't know what it says." And, yeah, read something, and then like a couple of days later, it'll be something completely different, and he'll come out with reading it, and you'll be like, "How did you read that?" "Oh, I just read it." And I'm like, "Well, could you not have done that like 3 days ago with that other thing?"
Yeah.
So sometimes I think he maybe reads a bit better than he lets on.
Right.
He just likes to see us do the work for him.
I was going to say it's just being lazy. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a problem with Logan. Logan, he can be lazy, so with a lot of things. So unless it involves his Nintendo Switch or his phone or something,
Right.
he's not going to jump up to do anything too
Right.
quickly.
Right. So he's completely like verbal. You can carry on whole conversations with Logan and stuff.
Oh,
Right.
Logan wakes up at 6:30 in the morning, and he will not stop talking until 8:30 at night when he goes to bed. It's really remarkable that 1 year he went from like juice, animal, dinosaur, like those were his words, to full-blown conversations by the end of that year. And he's never stopped.
Right. Does he get obsessive about things, about like
Oh, yeah.
dinosaurs or about like dates? Like there's a family that I know, like they were planning to go to Disney World like in a month, and like every day that's all their son talked about all day, every day is Disney, Disney, Disney. When are we going? When are we going? When are we going? You know, and it like drives them nuts.
Yeah, so a few years ago, were planning a trip. My parents live in the Bay Area, and so we were planning a trip, and it wasn't until the end of March, and I said to my wife, "Well, we'll tell the boys on Christmas Day, like we'll tell them Christmas Day that they're going," and we did, and that was a huge mistake because we got right. So if today is Christmas Day, we are going in how many sleeps? That kind of thing. So yeah, we had that the entire time. He had a meltdown when we were getting on the plane because he was just so excited. He'd never been on a plane before. Well, he had been on a plane, but he'd been much younger. But he is getting on a plane, and his brothers are coming with them, and Cooper was only like 10 months old at the time. So like he's like, "Oh, is Cooper okay? Will he be okay on the plane?" Logan's got this caring trait where he really cares. Our Carter recently started having seizures. Back in October, he had a seizure, and Logan got very upset, and mostly because he didn't know what it was, and we obviously had to explain to him what it was. And then I was working away just before Christmas. It was the week before Christmas. I was working away up north, and I got a phone call, and I didn't answer it for I was driving. By the time I did kind of phone back, it was Logan on the phone, and he was as calm as a cucumber. And he just said, "Dad, Carter's had a seizure. You need to come home." And I was like, "Where's Mum?" And he's like, "Oh, she's on the phone to the ambulance." And I was like, "Right, okay, right, I'm coming home then." But he was, and I was driving down the road, flying down the road maybe, and I was like, he sounded calm. And I got home, and just as I got home, Carter was going away in the ambulance, and Logan was absolutely calm, so calm, so composed. And his younger brother Cooper, he was getting a bit irate and a bit like, "What's going on? What's going on? I don't know what's going on," because he's only just he's only 4,
Like 4,
so
yeah.
So he was actually helping calm his younger brother down. And he took him up to his room, and they sat on the bed, and they talked and whatever else. So Logan has a real caring trait that he really, and like I said to you before, like when I come home from work at night, he'll ask me how my day is. And he'll, like when you wake up in the morning, he was like, "Oh, how's your sleep?" Like he does have this kind of inherent kind of caring trait that he does care, and he wants to make sure everyone's okay.
Yeah, it's not that he's saying that just because he's learned that that's what you say when you come home. It's just because he genuinely does care.
Yeah.
Because
at first I thought he's just like seeing me and Rachel do it, my wife,
right.
Because she'll ask me how the day was and stuff. But no, it's definitely
Yeah.
he cares, because
Yeah.
he'll listen, and then he'll kind of move on. Right, okay,
Mhm.
great, okay, bye, off you go, and stuff. But he does, for that like 3-4 minutes where you're talking to him, he is
Mhm.
focused,
Right.
and he is interested in what. And if you do say, "Oh, it was a bit of a bad day, this, that happened," and blah blah blah, and he'll ask follow-up questions as well.
Hmm.
So, yeah, he definitely, it's something that we've definitely seen from him over the last, maybe even last over 2 years. He has that caring trait has come more and more,
Mhm.
especially with his younger brothers.
Right. Have you ever seen the movie The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock?
Yes, I have. Yes.
We just watched it again the other day, and the boy in the movie, um, he tested low with his IQ and everything, but he tested like 95th percentile in protective instincts.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Right.
because he
And that,
puts his
yeah.
arm out. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how he ended up being, good at football. As soon as she said, just pretend that he's me and you need to block everybody from hurting me, that's when everything changed, right?
Yeah.
But that's kind of what it sounds like with me with Logan. He's got these protective instincts, like he cares, like he wants to make sure that everybody's safe and everybody's okay. And,
Yeah, it's definitely the way we've noticed it over the last couple of years. And even if you think back further, there was probably signs of that as well. But I think definitely with his little brothers, like
Mhm.
if we're giving, because as the youngest Cooper is like a Tasmanian devil, like he is just an absolute whippet. He is all around the house causing trouble. He bullies his two big brothers as well. Like he's really bad. And if we give him a row, Logan will step in and tell us to stop giving him a row.
Mm.
Like Cooper will have done something like hit Logan, but we'll give him a row for it. And
Mhm.
as we're giving him a row, Logan will be like, "Why are you giving him a row? Stop shouting at him." And it's like, we're giving him a row because he hit you.
That is a Scottish word. What does that mean? Does that mean you're yelling at him? You're spanking him? Like, what does that mean? Give him a row.
Oh, give him,
A
yeah,
row.
just you're giving her, you're shouting at him, you're kind of telling him
Yeah,
off,
you're
kind of
just
thing.
telling him to stop.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's it for part 1. Be sure to tune in for part 2. I hope you enjoyed listening and it helped you gain a new perspective. If you're interested in buying our book series, Robbie's World and His Spectrum of Adventures, the link will be in our episode description as well as my Instagram and Facebook pages. If you enjoyed the show and you'd like more content, please be sure to hit that like button, follow us, and don't forget to leave us a great review. Thank you for joining us. Be sure to join us again on our next episode of Spectrum Perspectives.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of today's episode. Be sure to join us again next time to hear the second half of the interview on Spectrum Perspectives.